Well, I'd like to welcome to our show this morning Pat Broeske. She teaches film as literature and nonfiction writing with, of course, the Emeritus Institute. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Ken.
I'm looking here at your background, your very interesting background for sure, and some in reality TV and the UCLA Extension Writers Program. You've got a lot of good background here, right?
Right. I came to this program by way of really my work instead of the academic world. I'm a published author, and I've also written hundreds of articles for newspapers, magazines. I've written scripts. So yeah, I have a diverse background.
Yeah, you certainly do, and that certainly covers the nonfiction writing in many cases.
Yep.
Let me ask you, film as literature. Is there, when you're teaching this course, are there certain significant films that you might go to and speak about more often than others, or ones you like to pick out that really kind of hold us, you know, obviously people would say something like Citizen Kane or something like that.
Right. You know, there's a few of us that teach film as literature at different times in different parts of the community of South County. So to be honest, what I did was I looked at some of the other instructors' syllabi.
Okay.
I don't want to show the same films that they're showing.
Right.
They probably don't want to show the same movies I'm showing. And I don't want to show something that people know every single frame of the movie.
Exactly.
So I look at film as literature as it's kind of like a book club, only we're using movies. And we're trying to, you know, I'm trying to elicit feedback from my students. I'm trying to get them to think about what we're seeing. So I went through, I think each instructor does a different kind of course. And mine is a mix of classics and a few contemporary films. And I look for certain themes that might resonate or filmmakers that are exciting. So
do you view the film in its entirety, and then kind of dissect it and go through the? You certainly have experience in this as far as the script writing part of it. Like, why did they choose this way to go? And
yes, what we'll do is it's a 3-hour block. For the class is a 3-hour block, so that gives us, you know, a couple of hours to watch a movie. I'll get up and speak just a little bit before the movie starts. And then we'll run the film, we'll run the entire movie, and we run them with closed captioning. So that it really helps people, because there's some maybe hearing issues, or maybe you're at the back of the room. And then at the end of the film, I get up there and we talk about different elements of the movie. Sometimes it's in regard to storyline or characters or the setting. Was it realistic? Sometimes it's in regard to the filmmakers, or I might mention the actor. You know, what did you think of that performance? Did he capture it? And what about the character he or she is playing? And does it still ring true today? What about the themes of the film? So we talk about it on different levels like that. And it's kind of exciting to get the reaction from people, because sometimes they point out things. So, you know, I usually research the movies before I screen them. So I have my reasons for the various movies I show. But sometimes they point things out to me that I didn't know, and I really find that exciting. We showed a film, I showed a movie from 1964, a Japanese new wave movie.
Really?
With a weird soundtrack, very weird soundtrack, and it was called Woman in the Dunes. And one of my students pointed out, because that soundtrack was so eerie, that around that time, electronic music was starting to permeate scores. And so that soundtrack is part of that movement of electronic music. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
You know what's interesting nowadays for people who really are into films and things, of course you can get DVDs, and quite often you have a narrative. You can choose that track where you're not even listening to the dialogue, you're hearing it in the background, but a director or whoever quite often I've noticed a great person who writes about film as literature, John Canemaker. And you can go through these things and you're like, wow, I never realized that in this film.
That's right.
And it's kind of like what you do, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
You know, I showed a movie called On the Waterfront,
Sure.
a 1954 film with a landmark performance by Marlon Brando. But one thing, and I kind of surprised the students, they weren't aware of the fact that, you know, the movie involves somebody, he's going to be a whistleblower. He's going to kind of be a rat about the mob, and, you know, a mob-influenced union. And the filmmaker, Elia Kazan, he is a guy who named names during the McCarthy era.
Really?
So, yeah, and so I said there's a strange tie between this movie and the McCarthy era, because this film about a guy who names names was directed by a man who named names unapologetically.
Very interesting.
Yeah, it surprised some people.
Wow.
So, yeah.
But that's the neat things you get to find out about when you take a class such as yours.
I hope so. Yeah, I try to point those things out, and sometimes some movies we look at, you know, I show maybe 4 or 5 foreign films during the course, and sometimes we look at them in terms of that culture,
right.
that particular culture. Of course, I showed Cinema Paradiso, which is sort of a Valentine. It's an Italian movie. Really, it's a Valentine to the movies and to the significance of a movie theater in a small Sicilian village. So it's a fun film to show. So some of my movies, I show them for different reasons. And by the way, I don't love every movie that I show. Sometimes I show them because I want a reaction to the themes, or to, you know, what do you think of the way the movie was made? I showed a 1931 German film, pre-Nazi era, that was the first ever police procedural and the first movie about a serial killer. It's called M, like for monster. And it was very interesting because it's also an early sound film. But some of the students could see a little bit of an ominous tone in the film. There's some marching scenes. And there's some, it's an interesting film on a lot of
very interesting.
On a lot of levels.
Any contemporary films, contemporary meaning over the last, let's say, 5 years, that you really think you use or you think kind of stand out in this?
I'm going to show a movie called Brooklyn, which is really charming, which was an Oscar contender last year, and I really like it. It's about the immigrant experience.
I remember that. Irish, right?
Yes, Irish.
That's right.
It's a very nice film. It almost could have been made in the 40s. Great performances. I think it's a lovely screenplay and capturing an era. I've shown a couple of other films that were made, you know, fairly recently. So it all depends. Next semester, I'm going to be teaching, starting in January, another round of my classes, my film as literature and nonfiction writing. But I'm going to, because the Academy Awards are coming up at the end of February, from January to kind of the end of February, I'm going to be focusing on either some Oscar-winning films, some of which people may have forgotten about, or some films spotlighting people that went on to win Academy Awards, saying, what do you think of this early movie with Russell Crowe or Leonardo DiCaprio? Would you have guessed that they're going to become a great actor?
That would be fun.
So I thought it would be kind of fun, so I'm going to try to give it a little spin. So I'll have a few more contemporary films next semester. Yeah,
that'll be great. And your classes, are they local here, or they're somewhere off campus or off Laguna Woods Village?
They're both in Laguna Woods. I teach the film as literature on Mondays at 11 o'clock in Clubhouse 3. And my nonfiction writing class, which is really kind of exciting because it's a little different than the creative writing courses they have here.
Right.
I teach it on Friday mornings at Clubhouse 5.
Okay. All right. Very good. And it's funny, speaking of Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt, where did they start? Growing Pains.
That's right.
Remember that TV series?
I sure do.
Maybe that wasn't their first thing. I think
they were very young in it.
They
but yeah,
were.
there's some great clips from that show.
Yeah, I think they did some TV. I know they did TV ads.
One of them did commercials. I think Leonardo did some commercials.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, you look back and you never know where they're going to come from.
That's right. That's right.
Good to see you.
Thank you, Ken.
And
it was fun.
great to meet you. And folks, remember, coming up, I think you can start to get in your classes pretty soon.
Yes,
am I right?
Yes,
yeah.
the catalog's out. The catalog's out.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Do that. This is going to be a fun class. Just talking to you, I can highly recommend it.
Thank
As I
you very
can all
much.
the instructors from the Emeritus program.
I'm really
It's
pleased
fantastic.
to be part of it.
Yeah, it is fantastic. Saddleback.edu/Emeritus is the website. Nice to meet you.
Thank you, Ken.
You know what's